I know you've seen it. Some guy on one of the social media platforms in a tight black shirt, or maybe even shirtless, screaming into the camera, telling you to man up, grind harder, stop being a little bitch. And maybe a part of you likes it. It makes you feel, fired up for a moment. It gives you that hit of, yeah, I'm going to change my life right now. But here's the truth no one's telling you. That kind of alpha content, it's actually keeping you weak. It's making you dependent on hype instead of building the kind of man who doesn't need it. And if you want to understand why, we got to go way back. Hey man, I'm Kyle. I'm a master NLP practitioner and a master success coach for men who are tired of performing, tired of that mask, and ready to live, really live their life as the grounded, capable leaders they were meant to be. And just for you being here, I have put free resources in the description for you to check out and get for yourself. So today, we're not just talking about, alpha content. We're going to rip it apart, lay it next to the way men used to be trained, and I'll show you exactly why one makes you dependent and the other makes you unshakable. So let's start here. And before I get into it, I just want to say that this is really my opinion, and you are welcome to disagree with me. I'm not here to bash anyone or make it seem like there's only one way to be a better man, and that my way is the right way, and that others are wrong, right? I'm here just to say that I have found that not everyone responds to the same way, and the same type of teaching. So I have sat in an audience to see David Goggins speak live, and it was an amazing experience, one that I won't forget soon. I have much respect for the Navy SEAL guys and the MMA fighters that get on screens and yell and scream about how you're not doing enough and you just need to do more. Hey, if that works for them and their followers, great. But what I have found is that the modern alpha movement online is built on one thing, and that's intensity. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's short bursts of motivation packaged to get your blood pumping for a few minutes. And that's really the first problem. It's a drug. You feel good in the moment, but just like with caffeine, you crash. And when you crash, what do? You go back to the same channels, the same clips, the same guy yelling in your face because you've never actually built the skill to lead yourself when it's quiet. So here's the second problem, that I see with it. It's performative, right? They're selling you an image of what they think masculinity looks like without the depth of what it truly means. It seems to be all chest beating. There's really no inner anchoring. And the third problem is it's reactive. That kind of alpha energy needs an enemy. It needs something to fight against, needs to prove it's strong. You know, real strength doesn't need to prove a damn thing. So let's talk about ancient Rome. When boys were trained to become men, they weren't thrown into a room with someone screaming at them until they broke down. They were initiated, mentored. They were given responsibility, you know, before they even felt ready so they could learn to carry the weight. Roman soldiers trained in silence as much as they trained in combat. They were taught discipline, formation, and unity because the man who panics in battle gets himself and everyone around him killed. Even the gladiators, the ones you think of as, as really these brutal warriors, had rituals of preparation, mental conditioning, and really stillness before entering the arena. They weren't just brawlers. They they really were like, craftsmen of war. Now, fast forward to the Crusades. Knights were not made by hype. They took oaths. They were trained in both the sword and spirit. They studied strategy, learned diplomacy, and understood that strength without wisdom could destroy entire kingdoms. They were taught the code of chivalry, which wasn't about being nice, it was about protecting what was sacred. Holding honor even when no one was watching, and really serving a mission greater than themselves, right? So, do you see the difference yet? Ancient training built internal capacity. It didn't just crank up the noise so you'd move for 5 minutes. It built a man who could hold the line when everyone else broke, a man who could command respect without saying a word. Really, modern alpha content really teaches, dependency. It keeps you chasing the next hit of external motivation. It's like, putting a soldier on the battlefield who's never trained without the commander yelling in his ear. The moment it gets quiet, he freezes. So I get it, brother. We live in a time where men are starving for strength, where the role models we have are either completely absent or they're telling us to just, be nice, stay in line, don't offend anyone. So when you see someone loud and aggressive, you know, and confident, you mistake that for leadership. But that's not leadership. That's theater. And if you keep consuming it, you'll spend your entire life thinking strength comes from hype instead of presence. So, what's the alternative to all this performative, hype based alpha mindset that we see today? Right? It's not complicated. It's really the same thing that built men thousands of years ago, the same thing that forged warriors, kings, and leaders long before Instagram existed. So let's break this down, right? The first one is ritual and practice, not random bursts of motivation. Men in history didn't become grounded leaders because they watched a hype speech and then went back to scrolling. They trained every single day, and really whether they felt like it or not. Roman soldiers drilled in formation until it became second nature. Samurais practiced the same sword stroke thousands of times until their body could do it in their sleep. Tribal hunters, tracked, trained, and prepared even in seasons when there was no hunt. So when the moment came, they'd be ready, right? That's the difference between a man who's dangerous on command and a man who only feels strong when he's motivated. Rituals build, that muscle memory. Practice builds trust within yourself. Today, that might look like, training your body at the same time every day, journaling or meditating every morning, reading and studying so your mind always stays sharp. Really building systems into your life so discipline doesn't rely on emotion. It's about consistency because ritual beats motivation every time. So the next one is inner mastery, right? So regulating your own nervous system so you can lead others. So here's really a truth that might sting. You can't lead anyone if you're emotionally hijacked. If you're quick to anger, when you panic, things will go sideways. If you're constantly reactive, no one's going to trust you to lead them anywhere, right? The strongest leaders in history were masters of themselves before they led anyone else. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, would journal daily to regulate his thoughts. Japanese generals practiced breathing and tea ceremonies before battle because they knew that a man who can't control his breath can't control his sword. Modern men confuse strong with loud, but really, strength is having your nervous system so dialed in that chaos doesn't knock you off balance. If your woman's emotions can pull you into defensiveness, you're not leading, you're reacting. Inner mastery means you can hold your ground without collapse and without exploding, you know? So the third one is silence and reflection. Okay, so these are so your decisions aren't reactions. So let me tell you something that separates boys from men, right? Boys react, men respond. The men from the past, from the Stoics to the samurai, understood that silence wasn't weakness. It really was a strategy, right? They'd step back, assess, and then, you know, only then take that action. In today's world, silence feels uncomfortable because we're addicted to noise. You know, we scroll, we fill every gap with music or podcasts or chatter because we're afraid of our own thoughts. But stillness, reflection, that's where clarity comes from. If you can't sit quietly and think through, a problem without running to your phone for a distraction, you're not ready to lead anyone, not your family, not your business, and really not even yourself.
So,
Hey, just a brief interruption from your video to tell you about an exceptional opportunity. You keep saying that you're ready to change, but let me ask you, what's actually changing? Because reading more books and setting more goals doesn't mean anything when your core identity is stuck in the same cycle. The real reason you can't move forward isn't because of lack of discipline or motivation. It's the loop that you're in. It's the beliefs that run your decisions before you even realize it. That's why I created the foundation, a free masterclass that shows you how to break that loop. I identify exactly how the loop operates, and it's broken down in a way that you probably have never heard of before. I also explain how to rewire your loop for success. This is not a lecture, it's not theory. It's the start of you finally understanding why you feel stuck and what you can do about it. Inside, you'll learn how to spot the thoughts that sabotage you, shift the identity underneath your patterns, and anchor new beliefs that actually support who you're becoming. You've tried forcing change. Now it's time to naturally become the change. Link is in the description for this absolutely free download of the foundation. Let's start your shift today. And now, back to our video. So, the fourth one is all about carrying responsibility. So, before you think you're ready, you know, so you really grow into it, right? So one of the greatest mistakes modern men make is waiting, until they feel ready to step into responsibility. You know, you'll never feel ready, right? You'll never. In ancient warrior cultures, boys were given responsibilities far before they thought that they could handle them. A young Spartan might be tasked with, leading a hunt. A squire might be expected to care for his knight's armor and a horse in the dead of, winter, And guess what? That pressure forged them, right? If you want to grow as a man, take on weight before you feel prepared. It it just might be the starting, point for you. If you're thinking of starting up a business or you've been, thinking about it, it, might be just mentoring a young man. It might be, stepping up in your relationship and leading the direction instead of waiting for her to. Responsibility is what stretches you into the man you're supposed to be. And really the final one that I want to look at is service is something, that needs to be greater than yourself. Because without a mission, strength turns into destruction. So here's the part most modern alpha content leaves out. A man without a mission will turn his strength inward and, destroy himself. Or he'll turn it outwardly and destroy others, So the warriors of the past didn't just, train to, be strong just for themselves. They fought for their people, their land, and really their honor. Knights swore oaths to protect the weak. Samurai served their lords with loyalty that outweighed fear. Leaders from the ancient world to modern day understood that strength without service is just ego. Your mission doesn't have to be world changing, it just has to be bigger than you. That might be leading your family with integrity. It might be, building a business that creates opportunities for others. It might be, mentoring the next generation of men so they don't grow up lost like some of us have. Without a mission, your strength will wither or be wasted. In Rome, they understood this. In the Crusades, they understood this. And, among samurais and native tribes, and really in any culture that produced grounded, capable men, they all understood this. The yelling came last, if at all. So here's my challenge for you. For the next 7 days, I want you to stop consuming the hype content. No alpha clips, no one yelling at you to be, more of a man. Instead, sit in stillness. Write out what you value. Really, you really need to decide what you're willing to stand for. And take that and go and do one action every day that aligns with that, even if no one sees it, even if no one applauds you, because that's where your real strength lives. The the men of history didn't become strong by chasing a feeling. They became strong by committing to a process that forged their mind, their body, and their spirit into something that's unshakable. You want to be a man who doesn't need to be hyped up to do what needs to be done? Stop outsourcing your masculinity to a YouTube clip. Build it from the inside out, because hype fades, but presence, that will make you a leader for life. If this landed with you, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And also share with a fellow brother who might need to hear this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever I release a new video. I also have free resources below that will help you start rebuilding from the inside out. Tools that work, built for men just like you. So hit subscribe for yourself, grab the tools, and reach out. Give me a follow too on social media. Links are in the description. Remember, you're not broken, you're becoming. I'll see you on the next video. Stay strong, brother.